For joining us this hour. Really happy to have you here. This was Philadelphia today, a protest to defend the EPA. Honk if you love clean water. This was Duluth, Minnesota today, another big turnout of people protesting to stand up for the EPA. This was Chicago, Illinois today, more people out defending the EPA. It was a big protest today in Chicago. Good signs, lots of people. It was a picket and a protest. This sign says, factories today emit 1,500,000 tons less toxic air pollution than in 1990. Protect EPA workers, protect your family's health. I don't know who this person is at the Chicago protest, but may I commend you on excellent punctuation and grammar on that perfectly spelled sign. It's all perfect. A+. Also a very good point. This was Washington, D.C. today, yet more people coming out to defend the U.S. Post Office. We saw a bunch of protests, people defending the post office last week. Then we saw just a huge number of protests for the post office this weekend. Now today in Washington, D.C., people came out to say, hands off the post office. USPS belongs to us. This protest was based around rural letter carriers, people who deliver the mail in rural America. You see the signs there at the protest today in Washington. Rural America relies on the Postal Service. Also a good point and very true. If Donald Trump is going to effectively abolish the post office like he says he wants to, or privatize it like Elon Musk says he wants to, rural states will absolutely take the worst of it by a mile, which itself is going to be really interesting for rural red state Republicans in Washington trying to justify that to their constituents. Yesterday, we saw marches to support immigrants in San Francisco, California, and in El Paso, Texas, including members of the clergy in El Paso. In South Carolina, pro-Trump Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace has been refusing to meet with her constituents in the 1st Congressional District in South Carolina in the Low Country. A new local group called the Low Country Accountability Alliance has invited her to do a town hall with her constituents in her district this week on Friday. It does not appear that she is inclined to do that. In the meantime, they have put up these billboards in her district, show your face, Mace, and missing Nancy Mace last seen dodging constituents. That's happening in South Carolina. In Georgia, in Savannah, where constituents of Republican Congressman Buddy Carter have been protesting and demanding that he talk to them in an in-person town hall with his constituents. Last night, Congressman Buddy Carter instead opted to do a town hall by telephone. He might have thought that might have kept it a more low-profile event, but alas, more than 10,000 people called in.
Across Georgia this morning, a Savannah representative faced more than 10,000 people during a telephone town hall. Yesterday, Congressman Buddy Carter answered their questions, and that was after voters protested outside of Carter's office in Savannah about 2 weeks ago, asking for an in-person meeting. The Republican representative was on the phone answering questions from voters, and a big topic for a lot of them was Social Security and benefits for older Americans. The Congressman says there is no risk of those programs going away.
No risk? Really, Congressman Carter? Really, no risk at all? We'll be back to that point in a moment. But in Kentucky, we reported last night on Republican Congressman Andy Barr not showing up to a town hall that his own constituents held in Lexington in his name. Even though he wouldn't come, they held it as a people's town hall at the beautiful Kentucky Theater in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. They completely filled the place and then some. But Congressman Andy Barr did not show up. Instead, he, like Congressman Buddy Carter in Georgia, Andy Barr in Kentucky, also opted to do a telephone town hall instead of meeting with people in person. That apparently, according to local news reports, had its ups and downs.
Nothing is more American than Kentucky bourbon. President Trump is fighting for American whiskey, so it is the first choice among consumers everywhere.
Some callers say they are worried about government security.
None of us voted for a South African billionaire to come and rummage through our private financial and health information.
In response, Congressman Barr says Elon Musk is an American and reminded listeners of the democratic process.
And for anyone who thinks that there are threats to democracy, just consider that 77 million Americans elected this president and this agenda. I would argue that that is democracy.
So you vote for one guy, you get the other guy. That is democracy. Ta-da! Jeez. And as for Kentucky bourbon, guess which country is the #1 export market for Kentucky? Oh, Canada, where they are taking Kentucky bourbon off the shelves, where they are experiencing a patriotic upsurge of Canadians promising to never again buy Kentucky bourbon because of Donald Trump and his genius tariff idea and his constant threats that he's going to go to war with Canada to annex them as the 51st state. So yeah, go Kentucky Republicans. Good luck. I see why you might not want to talk to your constituents in person anytime soon. So there's a lot going on today. And I have to say, this is one of those days in the news that just evoked like one spit take after another. I felt like all day long I was like, do whoop. You said, do whoop, what? I mean, just a sampling amid all the actual scientific research that Donald Trump is attacking and ending, including like cutting off clinical trials for cancer treatments for veterans at the VA. I mean, all the stuff like that he is cutting. Trump is ordering up one new study for the federal government to do. The Washington Post reports exclusively tonight that Donald Trump has tapped a fake doctor to head up this new national study. It is a study of just how terrible vaccines really are. And he and his administration have tapped to run this study a man who is not a scientist and not a doctor, but he was disciplined in the state of Maryland more than a decade ago for practicing medicine without a license. They are decimating the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control, which together have given us basically every single major medical advance in humankind in the last 40 years plus. And instead, they're now hiring cranks off the internet to tell us how bad science is and how you shouldn't get vaccinated. It's just amazing. Trump today unveiled yet another executive order targeting another major law firm for destruction because he thinks this is how he can make sure that people will stop going to court to try to stop him from doing things that are illegal. In particular, I think he also hopes that these kinds of attacks mean that no good big law firms will represent the people and the entities that he goes after on his enemies list. I mean, this is just the latest in a series of these that he has done. I will just say that, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I spend a lot of time talking to lawyers and talking about stuff going on in the American judicial system. America's big-time lawyers and big-time law firms have spent a lot of time in the past few years gazing lovingly at themselves in the mirror, telling themselves what great patriots they are, right? Congratulating themselves on the proud history and standards of their profession. Right? The best lawyers and best law firms in the country have been telling these inspiring tales for years now about how brave they will definitely be when the country needs the rule of law to stand. It needs the courts to stand. It needs good lawyers to stand up to authoritarianism and save the democracy. Y'all have been telling yourself a very pretty story about your own patriotism and bravery for a long time now. Well, time's up. Now is the time to actually show it. Now is the time to actually show us all that you are the person who you told us you would be, that you are the profession that you told us you would be, that you will uphold the standards that you've been so proud of and crowing about so much for the last few years. In our new authoritarian system, the country's most powerful law firms right now are getting picked off one by one because, so far at least, they won't get together and stand together to say they're not going to take it. And they're not going to let this happen to any lawyer, to any law firm, to the legal profession which the country needs in order to fight to retain the rule of law. American lawyers and law firms have been telling themselves that they're going to do great in this moment when it comes. This moment is here. And they are so far not proving themselves up to their own legend. Time is short to turn that around. You're depending on it as a profession. You're depending on it as individuals. Your businesses are depending on it, but the country is depending on it too. This is not the time to get small. To underscore the point, the Republican Speaker of the House today said that he and the Republican-led Congress may start abolishing federal courts. They may start defunding federal district courts, thereby abolishing them. Sound like a good idea for our three co-equal branches of government to have one just abolish the other? Anybody home? Big law? Anybody? Trump signed another executive order tonight on elections, which, among other things, demands that all states hand over their voter rolls to Donald Trump's top campaign donor, Elon Musk, because Elon Musk will, I don't know, fix the voting rolls or something. Sound good? Like I'm telling you, it has been a day. You know, at one of the big protests at Tesla dealerships this weekend, at the one in Chicago, this caught my eye. A Getty photographer caught this sign at the Chicago protest: "Go steal data from Mars." As all these things come to fruition, and each new day comes to pass in this administration, what they are doing with our data, data security, their handling of sensitive information, has turned into the big populist issue of this administration, and it's turned into just a scandal-generating machine that we are seeing the fruits of every single day. I mean, we probably should have seen it coming, with Trump in his first term taking all the classified documents from his first term and stashing them in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, right, including classified documents concerning nuclear weapons. That was probably a hint that this was not going to go well in any second term. We should have seen it coming probably at the very beginning of his first term when he invited Russian government officials and a Russian media outlet into the Oval Office, and then he, surprise, gave them code word level classified information on ongoing covert operations by Israel. Yeah, we should have seen that this was going to be one of the problems that we were going to be dealing with on a daily basis. But now we've got, it's every day. We've got him very thoroughly doxing hundreds of people, including his own lawyer, by inexplicably personally insisting that those people's full unredacted social security numbers, birth dates, and birthplaces should be included unredacted in his release of otherwise basically worthless John F. Kennedy assassination files. Why did he insist on that? We still don't know, but he did it. And now they're apparently getting new social security numbers. Good luck on the 1-800 number, waiting to get through to take care of that. We've had random kids who work for Elon Musk rifling through personnel files in the U.S. government and individual Americans' tax records and health information and hospitalization records and credit card and banking information. It's been a real treat. The American people really like this idea. Yeah, go steal data from Mars, why don't you? Get out. NPR reports today that last week, all Defense Department personnel received an advisory warning them that they should not use the app Signal even for unclassified information, not because of the security of Signal as an app per se, but because, quote, Russian professional hacking groups were targeting Signal users with phishing attacks. That was last week. That followed a Defense Department instruction from 2 years ago in 2023 that reminded Defense Department personnel that Signal should not be used. It could not be used for any non-public Defense Department information. Nevertheless, Signal, of course, is the app on which Donald Trump's hand-picked defense secretary led a robust and detailed group chat about forthcoming military strikes in Yemen. Recall for a moment that in his infinite wisdom, Donald Trump chose for defense secretary a Fox News weekend host who faced allegations of philandering and serious alcohol abuse, including many, many alleged instances of drinking on the job. Pete Hegseth, of course, denied those allegations, and oh, he looked so good doing it with his American flag handkerchief stuffed into his pocket in case he needed to wipe his nose. And so Donald Trump stood by him and his chiseled jaw for the job, and so he got the job, and now here he is, Pete Hegseth, confidently typing out with his thumbs that we are, quote, currently clean on OPSEC, while he was texting on Signal reportedly about specific U.S. weapons systems, named human targets, and the sequencing and exact timing of the battle plan for forthcoming U.S. airstrikes abroad, with a group of people that included the vice president, the CIA director, the director of national intelligence, the White House chief of staff, the Treasury secretary for some reason, the secretary of state, and also a random journalist who they appear to have added to the chat by mistake, but nobody noticed he was there because apparently nobody looked, because we're clean on OPSEC. Today at a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, CIA Director John Ratcliffe told one senator, Democrat Jon Ossoff of Georgia, that this was not a mistake. Was this a mistake, sir? No. Oh, I guess this was all on purpose. We will speak with Senator Jon Ossoff about that in just a moment. But I mean, here we are, less than a week away from the news. This is less than a week after the news that Pete Hegseth apparently had planned a briefing in the most secure briefing room in the Pentagon. A briefing on the nation's most classified operational war plans for a war against China. He had planned a highest level, highest security Pentagon briefing on those super secret plans for a pro-China U.S. businessman with billions of dollars in debt to China and huge business interest in that country, who also happens to be the top campaign donor to the president. That plan was apparently only busted up at the last moment when the New York Times reported on it, which I guess embarrassed them too much to go forward with it, but Pete Hegseth had been planning on doing it. That was Friday. This Signal group chat revelation was Monday, right? I mean, things are rapidly disintegrating here. Also, I mean, what do we do with the fact that, mishandling classified information in this way is very clearly a crime? I mean, do we expect the FBI will be all over that? I mean, this stuff is criminal. It's not keeping nuclear secrets in the Mar-a-Lago bathroom level of crime, but it's a crime. I mean, Jeffrey Goldberg, the journalist who was apparently accidentally included on this Signal chain, this group text, says that among the things CIA Director John Ratcliffe personally volunteered to this Signal group chat, he put in writing to this group chat on this commercial app. Among the things he posted there was the name of an undercover serving CIA officer, an active intelligence officer who Goldberg says was serving undercover. Chris Coons, Democratic senator from Delaware, responded to these revelations by saying, quote, every single one of the government officials on this text chain have now committed a crime. Even if accidentally, that would normally involve a jail sentence. Senator Ruben Gallego, a Marine veteran, responded this way, quote, amateur hour. These are the geniuses that are also selling out Ukraine and destroying our alliances all around the world. No wonder Putin is embarrassing them at the negotiation table. Now, actually, to that point, it would appear that one person who was a participant in the group chat on Signal, it would appear that one of them physically was in Moscow. It looks like he was maybe even inside the Kremlin while he was on this text group chat with these geniuses, among other things, reportedly naming an undercover CIA officer and debating very specific information about forthcoming military strikes. Quote, during the group discussion on Signal, Goldberg reported, CIA Director John Ratcliffe named an active CIA intelligence officer in the chat at 5:24 p.m. Eastern Time. That was just after midnight in Russia. Trump diplomatic envoy Steve Witkoff's flight did not leave Moscow until around 2 a.m. local time. A former Putin advisor who is still close to Putin said in a Telegram post that, in fact, Witkoff and Putin were meeting at the Kremlin until 1:30 a.m. Steve, did you keep your phone with you while you were in Russia? Did you keep your phone with you while you were in the Kremlin? Was your phone turned on? What could possibly go wrong? We're supposed to not worry, though, right? Because these guys are so savvy. They are so tough. They're New York real estate tough. This was the same trip to Moscow in which Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's real estate friend, came back to the United States and told a heartwarming tale of how Vladimir Putin had given him a painting. Oh, a painting of Donald Trump, which Putin had made for Trump personally. And Steve Witkoff hand-carried that painting from Russia back to the United States and brought it to the White House and gave it to Donald Trump. Did anybody check that painting? Anybody, give it a close going over? Steve Witkoff did an interview with the pro-Russia ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson in which he gushed about how much he, quote, likes Putin. He said, quote, I thought he was straight up with me. He said it was, quote, gracious of Putin to accept me, to see me in Moscow. He said, quote, I don't regard Putin as a bad guy. This is our negotiator. This is the quality of tough guy genius the United States is bringing to the table for these supposedly tough guy negotiations with the Russians to end the war in Ukraine, right? How's that going? Well, let's see. Let's just do a little math. So far, since Trump has been back in office, and since these negotiations have gotten underway, the tough guy negotiations, but being tough with Russia, get them to stop the war in Ukraine. So far, Trump has offered a few concessions. He's announced that the U.S. is no longer enforcing foreign agents law in this country. He's announced that the U.S. is shutting down all of our anti-foreign influence operations at the Justice Department and the FBI. He's announced that the U.S. is shutting down our so-called klepto-capture efforts to enforce sanctions versus Russia and stop them from evading sanctions. Trump has talked about ending sanctions altogether against Russia. Trump has said he wants Russia to rejoin the G7. Last week, we learned that Trump has cut off the program that tracks the Ukrainian children that Russia kidnapped and took into Russian territory. Trump is effectively telling Russia, hey, congratulations, you can keep the kids. Trump has restarted diplomatic relations with Russia and said that Russia will soon be reopening their embassy and all of their U.S. consulates at full strength in the United States. Trump shut down U.S. Cyber Command operations against Russia. He shut down our joint efforts with Europe to counteract Russian sabotage efforts in Europe, which thus far have included multiple arson attacks, an attempted assassination, and packing letter bombs onto international flights. We're no longer working with our friends in Europe to try to stop those things. Russia has reportedly asked for the U.S. to restart direct commercial flights between Moscow and the United States. Trump hasn't said a word about that, but do you think he'll say no? And now today, Trump says, quote, the United States will help restore Russia's access to the world market for agricultural and fertilizer exports. The United States will assist Russia in obtaining lower maritime insurance costs, and the United States will assist Russia in enhancing their access to ports and payment systems for such transactions. So that's so far what Trump has given up to Russia. But hey, I mean, it's negotiation, right? What did he get in exchange? Well, there's no ceasefire or end to the war in Ukraine. But yesterday, while those tough guy talks were underway in Saudi Arabia, Russia did happily shoot a bunch of missiles into Ukraine while the talks were actively underway. And Trump did get a painting. We are not dealing with the sharpest tools in the shed here at any level. We, in fact, appear to be dealing with very profoundly dull tools. But it's our national security that they're destroying, not theirs. And the American people are wise to it, which means if this system still works, it should make all of this politically unsustainable. We've got Social Security news ahead tonight. We've got Senator John Ossoff.
People are scared to death that you're really going after Social Security. Not only did my constituent not get his payment in February, they went to his bank account and tried to claw back previous payments from January and December. And then what did he do? He had to go down to the building in Seattle, the federal building, that you're trying to close, and stand in line for hours and hours and hours to try to say he wasn't dead and to stop taking his money.
It was Washington State Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell today bringing a story from her home state paper to a confirmation hearing for Donald Trump's nominee to run the Social Security Administration. Senator Cantwell told that story today from the Seattle Times about this 82-year-old Washington State resident who was mistakenly declared dead by Social Security, which resulted in his benefits being taken away. He first tried to fix the problem over the phone, and then, as you heard the senator tell the committee there, he went down to the local Social Security office in person to try to sort it out. This is from the Seattle Times. Quote, it was like a Depression-era scene, he said, with a queue 50 deep jockeying for the attentions of two tellers. The employees were kind, but beleaguered. Quote, they are so understaffed down there, he said. They think the office is about to be closed down and they don't know where they're going to go. It feels like the agency is being gutted. After waiting for 4 hours, Mr. Johnson admits he jumped the line. He says, quote, I saw an opening and I kind of just rushed up and told them I was listed as dead. That seemed to get their attention. One story, one town, one retired person trying to straighten out one problem with Social Security and finding a Depression-era scene when he did so. But as Donald Trump and his top campaign donor and whatever Doge is continue to hack away at the way Social Security runs as an administration, the questions about Social Security are moving beyond an anecdote here or there. The question, of course, is how much the agency can take before it just stops working altogether. This is from the Washington Post today. Quote, long waits, waves of calls, website crashes. Social Security is breaking down. Washington Post today provided this riveting reporting from Social Security offices around the country. Quote, in one office in central Indiana, the phone lines are jammed by 9 a.m. with hundreds of retirees, further taxing a staff of less than
A dying planet, the last harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Sable's Song, A Siren's Journey to Joy. Once upon a time, in a small, worn-out town in Middle America, there lived a little child named Sable. Born into poverty, Sable's body was frail, so thin that you could see her bones, but her heart was filled with an exuberance that not even hunger could dull. Sable was awkward, with dark, deep-set eyes that sparkled with innocence and wonder. Despite being born a boy, Sable always knew she was different. Inside her lived a girl, bright and effervescent, waiting to bloom.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
The Dreamer's Crystal Ball. Somewhere in Springfield, Ohio, a little Haitian migrant girl and her mother had just picked fresh berries, nuts, dates, and fruits for the elders of the town. With the money they earned, they eagerly headed to the grocery market, planning to buy vegetables for a hearty deer stew the mother was preparing for that night. But when they arrived, a chaotic scene greeted them.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Bella the Dog from Springfield, A Tale of Truth and Transformation. In the small, charming town of Springfield, Ohio, lived a regal standard poodle named Bella. Bella belonged to Mrs. Von Thursenberg, a well-known figure in the community, always polished, conservative in manner, but a lifelong Democrat. For years, she hosted elegant soirees, engaging in local politics, and treating her home like a kingdom. Bella had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, complete with fancy collars, custom bow ties, and an endless supply of treats from those who adored her. Recently, however, things had changed. Mrs. Von Thursenberg had been watching a lot of Fox News, and it seemed to have swayed her thinking.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
The Park of Secrets.
In the year 2060, near the heart of Florida, just a stone's throw from Disney World, stood a theme park unlike any other, a place known as the House of Secrets. It was a magical park, much like a state fair, filled with towering rides, carnival games, and parades that drew people from all over the world. But among the grand Ferris wheel and the colorful day parade, there was one attraction that outshined them all, the Parade Princess, a mesmerizing mermaid named Kenya. Kenya was a sight to behold. At 22 years old, fresh out of college, she had the kind of beauty that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her brown skin glowed under the park lights, her hair a stunning mix of purple and pink that cascaded over her shoulders. Little pink hearts adorned her cheeks, and a ribbon of color stretched across her nose. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her special.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
Dive into the story. This is more than a book, it's an experience. Download now. Read on your favorite EPUB reader or PDF reader. Click the link in bio to access the full story. Start your journey today.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.